They told us the formula was simple: study hard, work hard, stay patient, and life would eventually make sense. A stable job would lead to a stable home, and a home would mean security. For decades, that story felt almost universal, but somewhere along the way, the math stopped working. The effort stayed the same, sometimes even doubled, yet the reward quietly slipped further out of reach. And most people didn't notice until it was already too late. Growing up, housing was never framed as a gamble. It was described like a milestone, something that arrived naturally after enough discipline and time. You didn't need luck, just consistency. The older generation didn't talk about getting into the market. They talked about buying a house, like it was an appliance you saved up for. That language matters because it shaped expectations we're still chasing today. Fast forward to now, and the tone has completely changed. Housing is no longer a background detail of adult life. It's the main obstacle. It's the final boss. People with degrees, careers, and side hustles still feel like they're running on a treadmill that never slows down. The promise didn't disappear overnight. It eroded slowly, quietly, while everyone was busy blaming themselves. At first, the advice still sounded reasonable. Work harder, ask for promotions, switch jobs, learn new skills, and many people did exactly that. Productivity went up, hours increased, resumes got stronger, but housing prices didn't care. They moved to a different rhythm entirely, one disconnected from wages and effort, one powered by forces most workers were never taught to see. To understand how we got here, you have to rewind to a time when housing behaved differently. After World War II, governments treated housing as infrastructure, not an investment vehicle. Massive building programs, affordable loans, and strong wage growth created a balance. Homes rose in value, but slowly. They were places to live first, assets second. That distinction would not survive. As decades passed, policy priorities shifted, financial markets expanded, real estate became a favored store of wealth. Tax incentives quietly rewarded ownership and speculation. At the same time, zoning laws restricted supply in growing cities. Fewer homes were built where jobs concentrated. Demand kept rising, but supply didn't follow. Prices responded exactly as you'd expect. Here's the part most people missed. While wages were tied to local labor markets, housing prices became tied to global capital. Investors, funds, and institutions began treating homes like numbers on a spreadsheet. If returns looked good, money flowed in regardless of whether locals could afford to live there. Work ethic could not compete with that scale. For a while, cheap credit masked the problem. Low interest rates made rising prices feel manageable. Monthly payments looked affordable, even as total costs exploded. This delayed the pain, but it didn't solve it. It trained people to accept higher prices as normal, as long as the monthly number fit into a budget. That normalization changed everything. Meanwhile, rent followed the same upward path. As ownership became harder, more people stayed renters longer. That increased demand for rentals, which pushed rents higher, which made saving for a down payment even harder. The system fed itself. Every step designed to wait it out actually made the climb steeper. At this point, working harder started to feel insulting as advice. Not because effort doesn't matter, but because effort was no longer the missing variable. People were doing everything they were told and still falling behind. When a full-time job can't secure stable housing, the problem isn't motivation, it's structure. But structural problems are uncomfortable to talk about. It's easier to personalize failure than to question systems. So the narrative shifted. You didn't buy because you liked avocado toast. You didn't buy because you traveled. You didn't buy because you made bad choices. These explanations were simple, and they protected the myth that the system still worked. Data tells a different story. In many countries, housing prices have grown multiple times faster than wages over the last few decades. Not slightly faster, dramatically faster. No amount of budgeting can close a gap like that. The ladder didn't get higher because people stopped climbing. It got higher because someone kept lifting it. Another quiet change happened in how homes were used. They stopped being endpoints and became stepping stones. Equity became leverage. Leverage became more property. Those who already owned gained access to compounding advantages. Those who didn't were locked out, watching prices rise faster than they could save. The divide widened without a clear moment of collapse. This is where frustration turns into confusion. If housing is essential, why is it treated like a speculative asset? If work is valuable, why doesn't it translate into stability anymore? These questions don't have simple answers, but they do have patterns. And once you see those patterns, it becomes harder to blame individuals. Cities became magnets for opportunity, but not for construction. Jobs clustered faster than homes could be approved. Local resistance, environmental reviews, and political gridlock slowed building. Each delay protected existing property values while squeezing newcomers. Again, this wasn't an accident. It was a set of incentives working exactly as designed. Then came the shocks, financial crises, pandemics, supply chain disruptions. Each one reshuffled the deck, but none reset it. In many cases, housing prices accelerated even faster. Asset owners were shielded by policy support, while renters absorbed the volatility. The gap turned from concerning to generational. At some point, people stopped asking when they would buy and started asking if they ever would. That shift matters psychologically. Planning changes, risk tolerance changes, family decisions change. When housing becomes uncertain, everything built on top of it becomes fragile. This isn't just about money, it's about life trajectories. The most dangerous part of this story is normalization. When an abnormal situation lasts long enough, it stops feeling temporary. Young workers are told to accept instability as character building. Renting forever is reframed as flexibility. These stories reduce resistance, but they don't reduce pressure. They just rename it. None of this means work is meaningless. Effort still matters, skills still matter, but pretending that housing prices reflect hard work alone is a lie that benefits the system as it is. When prices are driven by policy, capital flows, and scarcity, personal hustle becomes a weak counterweight. So what's the delayed answer here? The real problem isn't that people didn't work hard enough. It's that housing quietly stopped being connected to work at all. The contract changed without notice. Wages stayed local. Housing went global. And most people were never given a chance to renegotiate. That realization can feel heavy, even discouraging. But clarity is better than confusion. Once you see the cause and effect chain, the shame lifts. You didn't fail a fair game. You played by old rules in a new system, and recognizing that is the first step toward demanding different outcomes. Solutions are complicated, but they exist. More building where people actually work. Policies that discourage pure speculation. Treating housing as shelter first, asset second. None of these are radical ideas historically. They only feel radical because the imbalance has lasted so long. Still, change is slow and time is expensive. Every year, prices stay disconnected from wages. The gap compounds. Waiting for the market to fix itself ignores how it was designed in the first place. Markets respond to rules, not hope. This leaves us with an uncomfortable question. If working hard is no longer enough to secure housing, what does that say about the promise we were sold? Was it a lie, or was it just outdated? And if it's outdated, who is responsible for updating it? Here are the 3 key points to remember. First, the housing crisis is not a personal failure problem, it's a structural one driven by policy and capital. Second, wages and housing prices stopped moving together decades ago, and effort alone cannot bridge that gap. Third, treating housing as an investment before a necessity has consequences that now define an entire generation. The warning is simple: if we keep pretending this is normal, it will become permanent, and the call to action is just as clear. Question the stories you were told. Learn how the system actually works. And if this helped you see the bigger picture, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who still thinks working harder is the only answer.